just want to thank you for coming and sitting down with me. I know it was kind of hard. We've intentionally not spoken in a while, but we have. It's been kind of off and on, but there was a time that months have gone by, and we kind of agreed that we'd let things kind of settle down. But in doing so, I think it caused a little bit of probably stress on your part, because you say that when we chat, you feel a lot better.
I sure do. But I was having a lot of anxiety leading up to the first phone call again when me and you talked. I don't know why, because like you said, I always feel better afterwards. And we was talking every day there for a couple months.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I had noted to let people know. I worry about you. I'm concerned, and so that's my biggest priority is just keeping in contact with you. And I think one of the things, and this is just my opinion, and a lot of what I'm going to talk about is my opinion, but some is factual based, scientifically based through a lot of different types of reading of people that have post-traumatic from these encounters. But I think because you called 3 days after this event happened, I'm still a part of the overall event and everything that transpired. So maybe in talking with me and kind of leading up to that first call, there was so much anxiety, it kind of brought everything back home again. That's just my 2 cents. What would you say?
I agree. 100%.
That's just kind of what I thought, just because it was so integrated to everything, and how you were still in shock and everything, and I that's just kind of what I put together and postulated here. So, but you have every right to feel that way. There's no right or wrong way in how you feel. And so what we're going to do, like I said, if there's anything that makes you feel uncomfortable or you don't want to answer, you just say pass or don't want to talk about it. And you're in control and not me. And
Okay.
one of the things that I spoke to you about is that, and you agreed, and I appreciate you very much for getting on here. You said that you didn't want to interview with anybody else and just me, and that, and I felt very honored when you said that. One of the things that I said to you, is that people have been asking and asking and asking.
Yeah, that totally shocked me.
But they have, because I've had more than a handful of people comment, and in fact, there were so many I couldn't return all of them. Is that there were so many people that have inquired what has happened, what's going on with him, how are the cousins doing, is he okay, they kept asking and asking. So that tells me that the people that listened to that episode, which is episode 24, the Ohio Bigfoot Attack and Fed Cover-Up is what we titled it. People have so many questions still. The biggest thing is that they're concerned about you. They want to know, are you still alive?
Right.
Are you in secret hiding? What's happened? And that's the biggest thing that I wanted to, when I called you, I said, hey, people want to know, and so can we just get on here and chat, just like we're sitting on the porch, and just kind of go through some things, whatever you want to share. But some questions I want to ask is, I already know the answer, but I just want to ask because some people have inquired. Is one of the things is there's not too many people, because most people that listen to this said, this guy, you can hear it in his voice. He saw something. Something happened. To the people that you're not here tonight, you're not here to prove anything. You're just, something happened that was unfortunate, and it was transpired into something that you just cannot even write this stuff. It's so incredible. But what would you say to the event that happened to you and your cousin, to someone that said this is just I mean, I know what happened, but I'm just saying to someone that's out there that's going to listen, and what would you say to someone that said, this is too incredible to believe, this never happened? What would you
Right.
say to them?
I might get a little more excited trying to explain it, but then I'd realize there's no sense in even doing that because I wouldn't believe myself telling the story if I didn't see it. I know I'm not going to convince anybody by telling them.
Right.
I know for a fact I'm not going to be able to do that. I was skeptical up until I seen it, and I know I don't say I believe in Bigfoot. I say I know that it's real. A monster, whatever it is, it's real. And there's no way I can prove it to anybody else, but I'll tell you, and you got my word, everything I said was the honest to God's truth. And I'm sorry that you don't believe me, but you better inquire about this and learn if you're going to be in the woods. And
Very
it
well
wouldn't be a
said.
bad idea to take you a big gun.
Well, and that is very well said there, buddy. And I'm just playing kind of devil's advocate here, just a little bit here, because of course, I believe you 1,000%. We've talked many occasion at many hours on the phone, and you've not
Roger.
changed. You've not changed one detail of what you explained in the very beginning, 3 days after it happened, up into present. Not one. And I've heard it many times. So even though you and I have spoken about this, I'm going to re-ask a couple things, just to kind of help people, bring them up to speed on a couple things.
Okay.
How are you doing? And you can be as honest or whatever you want. I'll just leave it up to you. How
I'm
are
going to be totally honest. So if I'm not going to, if I'm going to answer a question that I would have to fib a little bit, I'll just pass on it because I'm going to be totally 100% honest about everything.
okay? Perfect. That's fair enough. How are you doing nowadays? After it's coming up now, almost well, it will be 2 years this October.
Yes, it
And
will.
and what? How are you doing now? And I know that's a very open-ended question here because I know a lot has happened since then. But how are you doing now? Where's your state of mind? How do you think about this still often? The event that you and your cousin, after this attack by this Bigfoot, and all the things that transpired after that, of different agencies that got involved, and this whole cascade, this whole mess. How are you doing now?
Um, I am doing a lot better mentally. Uh, I think about it every day. Every day I still think about it. I can close my eyes and see it. Me and you talk, so you know, but for everybody else that don't, I'm not living in the country anymore. I'm living in the city, and I have woods in my backyard, but 300 yards on the other side of the woods is more houses. There's a house within 100 yards to my right and a couple hundred yards to my left. And I'm not in the middle of nowhere by no means. And I was taking out the garbage the other night, and I was in the backyard, and the sensor light didn't come on. It was dark, and for some reason it wasn't on. And I took the garbage out, and I ran in the house. I was scared, like a little kid. I heard a noise in the woods, not a growl, howl, nothing, just a noise. And I took off running to the house and had a panic attack. So yes, it does bother me to this day. I have a fence across the street that's I can sit on my porch, and over that fence, it's a 7 or 8 foot tall chain link fence going around a gravel quarry, a rock quarry. It's a pretty high fence, and it's got all kinds of vines and stuff growing on it. You can't see through it. And at night, I'll go out there and sit on the porch and smoke a cigarette, and I'll have my flashlight in my hand, and I'll just shine it around. And when I get to the top of that fence, I just know I'm going to see eyes, and it scares me. I've never seen nothing over there or anything, but the thought just scares the crap out of me. So I don't think I'm handling it that well if I talk about it like that, but I'm functioning okay day to day.
Well, I think that's a fair assessment. I mean, that's a very honest, because I think what people that hear the show, that episode, and then now they're hearing it as a follow-up to that episode, I think what people don't realize is that they don't understand. A lot of people that's never had an encounter, and I hope they never really do in many ways.
You and me both. I hope they never see one.
And it changes their life. I did another interview last night of a gentleman that had an encounter when he was 14 years old, and he's 62 now. And he told his parents, he told some friends and family, but outside of that, he had never really shared it. And it changed his life. It had such an impact. He told me, he said, I wet my pants. And I was embarrassed, but I wet my pants. I just, and I said, well, there's nothing to be ashamed when you have such an encounter like you had. He was by himself, and and
only 14 years old.
At 14 years old, and it chased him.
Wow.
And he made it out okay. He was so terrifying. He basically jumped in the car. His dad knew something was up, so his dad just threw the fishing gear in and just bailed. So I think what people don't realize is that this post-traumatic stress can affect people with these encounters so much so that it has lifelong lasting effects on
Roger that.
On so many different levels, but on a personal level, on a job level, on a relationship, on a friend level, aside from the fact other people intervening behind the scenes trying to create chaos. And so
yes.
So speaking of that, what can you share with the people that are listening after that day? And I know you shared with me with a cousin. It kind of was separated for a while. You didn't speak for a while. How is that relationship now?
It's torn apart. It's not mended at all. Me and him didn't have a falling out. The situation forced us to have a fallout. And he, like me and you talked about the other day, he did come over, and first time he's ever broke his word, he didn't come by today. He was supposed to come over today and work with me and never did. Never called me or nothing. So that's definitely not like him. I better back up on that first question you asked me about how am I doing. I'm not doing good. It has changed my life. As you know, I'm no longer married, all due to this. My poor daughter's just a mess because of it. She doesn't know everything, but she's a mess because of the situation that's happened with me and her mom.
Mm-hmm.
Financially, I'm still screwed up. People don't know it, I don't think, but I lost my driver's license. Bank account was frozen. Child support really screwed with me, the IRS. Just things that popped on me that shouldn't have been popped. Brought on all by this experience from us, I guess, talking about it too much. Certain people, authority figures, have control over your life, it seems like, and they did everything. I didn't break any laws or do anything wrong, but my driver's license got suspended, and it took what 4 5 months to get them back. And the bad thing about it, I was driving truck. You can't work when you don't have a driver's license if you drive truck.
Mm-hmm.
And the relationship, the nightmares. No, I guess I'm not doing good, man. I think I am, but I'm screwed up all the way around. And the same with my cousin. It's really screwed him up the same exact way. A little more than me. A lot more than me, as a matter of fact. Enough so that we don't even have contact anymore. And that's really makes me mad and sad all at the same time.
Right. Well,
You know?
some of the things that you shared with me, it's been over a year now after I heard this. I was upset. It was incredibly concerning because of what was going on behind the scenes. And now people that are listening, when they're going to hear this, there'll be some people say that can't happen. There's no one behind the scenes. There's no government agency doing this. It's just happenstance. I'm going to tell you something right now. If any folks are listening and saying that right now, here's what I want you to understand. Regardless of what you believe, this is a real agency. It's kind of multifactorial. We don't know how many are involved, but
it's almost as unbelievable as the Bigfoot.
It is. Yeah, that's very well put. It is. It is a multifactorial agency that is been around for a long time. They can do pretty much whatever they want. They operate under the strict code of secrecy. It's not the secrecy that we would say is the legal secrecy. In other words, this is the secrecy you see on the news, that our government can't let out certain secrets of certain planning on talking with certain countries or invading certain countries and certain trade secrets. This that I'm talking about is what's called the legal secrecy. This falls underneath a kind of a unacknowledged secret kind of access programs and or the U.S.A.P. And this is a collection of different people, some military background and some are civilian and that are contracted. And basically they can make your life miserable. So what that I can remember is that when we spoke, just what you said, Lance, I have my job. I just lost my job. And how long had you been at that job?
23 years.
23 years, and all of a sudden, just bye-bye. And
Yep.
the other thing, you had, who was it with the child support? Who?
That was me.
Okay. Who was there a department that contacted you for back?
The IRS supposedly. It wasn't even child support or children's whatever that services.
Welfare services?
Yes. It wasn't even those. It was the IRS.
Okay, so for a while, when we spoke, you said that when you contacted your bank, they had no clue what was going on. They themselves didn't know why the accounts of you and your wife were frozen. And
exactly.
is that right?
Yes, and it took me a while to find out about the child support thing. It took weeks.
Well,
It took the bank weeks to find out why or who. They didn't know why. They never knew why. They just who.
so you're saying that well, this is kind of a ruse because we know that you didn't have any IRS problems. Everything was
Correct.
peachy up until this point, till
Correct.
you and your cousin had this attack. We know that everything was just normal life, and
Correct.
so
No back child support, no rearage, no problems whatsoever with the. I've got a tax return for the last 17 years. I know 18 years ago I owed, and I know this because I paid. And yeah, no issues at all with the IRS.
so we know the accounts were frozen, and we know that how long were they frozen? At the
2.5 months.
2.5 months. Your savings and checking, everything was locked. You couldn't get a dime. You couldn't check anything.
Correct.
And
And
when
I lost my savings account.
I was going to say, when it became unfrozen,
In the checking, I had my total balance.
Okay, so
in the checking. Yes,
but
I had a little over $6,000 in savings that disappeared.
And that was no rhyme or reason, no name associated. It was just under the guise of IRS.
Exactly. And my wife's savings, she had a separate savings account, and hers ended up empty also. And she had a little more money in there than I did.
That's terrible. That's terrible. This is the part that when you told me, this is the part that really upset me here. So what they were trying to do is definitely prove a point with you. And we didn't, all this just kept transpiring. And so I know that you explained this to your wife, and I believe you said even to some people that were close to your pastor, and as I told you, I said it's kind of like feeding an elephant to someone all at once and expecting them to swallow because they weren't there, and it's just overwhelming for the average person to hear this, even from a loved one, to hear this and accept it. How did they respond when you were explaining this, them being your wife? And I believe you said you told your pastor, is that right?
Yes. Yeah, he just responded with an open mouth. Of course, he didn't call me a liar, but he didn't believe me. I don't know what he really thought. I know we prayed, and we had the conversation got into rebuking it at the end, and that's where it led. So I just let it go that way. That was his out of arguing with me about it or confronting me. So I just let it roll, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
With my pastor. And nothing else has ever been said about that except for me, how am I doing? And of course, I don't go to that church anymore. Not for that reason. I just don't go to that church.
Sure, I understand.
My wife thought I was a nut. It took me several times to finally tell her the whole story. First couple times I got pretty excited telling it and had a panic attack and was getting excited telling her. I was standing on a chair and holding my hand up and, trying to tell her, just picture, its head's higher than the frickin' ceiling, and it can't walk through that patio door unless it turns sideways. And, I wouldn't believe somebody standing there telling me that either, and especially all out of breath and sweating and, as excited as I was. I'd think they's on drugs too. But she knows I'm not on drugs, but it never sunk in with her. She knows something happened to me because I wasn't the same, but I don't think she understands what really happened.
Well, Probably not, and only because, in many ways, it's not her fault or anything. Because when someone doesn't have an encounter like that, the mind has a hard time to believe anything like this physically is living, is among
When
us.
I sold my bow, that was the only time she ever commented about it. That was the only time she brought up the encounter. I sold my bow, and she gave me a hug, and she's like, "Wow, something really did attack you, didn't it?"
Oh,
And that's
wow.
all she ever said about it.
So when you sold that, that was kind of your prized possession, and then when you sold that, that was just an acknowledgement that, hey, I'm not going back.
Yeah, I did go back the first year, just a month or so after.
I
I
remember you.
went back.
Yeah, I remember you saying
I,
that.
I got a buck, but I mean, my head was on a swivel, Lance. I didn't enjoy it. I was scared to death. Um, the guy that went hunting with us, I put him very close to my stand on purpose, and normally I don't like anybody around me anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And when after I shot it and gutted it, I got out of there and I didn't wait around for anybody else, and I haven't been back. I didn't go hunting this year, and it's that's one thing that really makes me mad about this too. It took that away from me. Like we was talking earlier, the mountains and the rivers and
Mm-hmm.
hunting and fishing. That was my thing, and now it's scary to me. I tell myself I'm going to go do this all the time. I'm going to do this and do that. I don't do it. I get there and I'm nervous, scared, and I leave. It, yeah, it affects you. It really does, man. I don't. This is helping me too because I didn't realize how screwed up I still was.
Well, we're gonna work through it, and we're gonna work through it
If it
together.
wasn't for you, I would already be in the rubber room. I'm telling you, Lance, you're a godsend. You're a savior. I've told you that from day one, brother. I love you. I love you, man. You have kept me sane.
Well,
It's
love you too,
terrible.
man. Love you too, and you're a good friend, a lifelong friend, and I've learned so much. We both learned together. It just confirmed so many things that I knew, thought I knew, didn't, and was on the border whether it exists or not. And everything was confirmed to the letter as it was happening, because what made this encounter different is that there was so much that happened. There was contact made by a Bigfoot to a human being, and it was aggressive. It hurt your cousin. There was multiple
Damn near
people.
killed him. Damn near killed him.
Yeah, it was very, very aggressive. I believe at that time, broke a rib, punctured a lung,
Broke 4 ribs.
broke
Yeah.
4 ribs, and it also
Cut
that
his
I
chin.
there was also a log thrown
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
cold
Yeah.
cocked him.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, man. Yeah, it hit a tree right beside us first. If it wouldn't have hit that tree, it would have took his head off. Man, that thing was flying like a fast 100 mile an hour. And that log probably weighed 35, 40 pounds. It wasn't no little twig.
Oh man, I didn't realize it was that big.
Yeah, man, it hit the tree. It sounded like a rifle going off. It hit it so hard. It cracked it. And then a piece of it flew off and hit him on the chin and knocked him out. I'm laughing about it now, but man, we're just, by the grace of God, we're still alive. Yeah,
Yeah.
if that would have hit either one of us before it hit that tree, it would have killed us. Even if it hit you in the stomach, it would have killed you.
Yeah, it would have caused a severe internal damage with something that large going that fast. I didn't realize it was that large.
Yeah, it was a good size log. It wasn't. It was still green too. It
So
wasn't
this
all done.
so this was broke off somewhere on land, obviously, and
Yeah, it's something he had picked up. It looked like cut firewood, actually. There, people have built fires on that island
Gotcha.
before, so,
Gotcha. Wow.
yeah.
So,
yeah, it meant us harm. There's no doubt about it. I don't think it was just trying to scare us off. Now, everything you said, Lance, has been spot on. Hang on, I'm getting a little excited.
it's okay. It's okay. We can take this as slow or whatever you want to do. We're just chatting here. So, well, when this was happening, I know along the way you were saying, Lance, how do you know this? How do you know this? And I said, well, because I've done enough investigation and listened to enough interviews that if I was in their shoes, this is what I would be doing next. I would be doing it this way. This is who I would bring in. This is the area that I would quarantine. This was what I would say to the public. And right now, I just want to say, and you've not heard the first the episode 24, you need to go ahead and listen to episode 24, and this follow up to that will make a lot of sense on what transpired. But as we were telling me, and it was almost when I told you after this had occurred, I said, they're going to be at that road and you won't be able to go down it. And then you actually went to that area, that boat landing or the road going in there. And what did you see?
A Humvee with barricades across the road, 2 armed soldiers that stopped us in our tracks and turned us around. You are not going in. And that wasn't just that road. There's 4 ways in there, and every one of them was blockaded with armed soldiers. I've been on enough maneuvers. You don't have armed soldiers. You don't carry live rounds anyways.
But when you say armed soldier, in other words, they were showing their firearm.
Oh, yeah. They had it. Yeah. It was, yeah. Carrying it to port position. Yeah.
Did they say their purpose there, or what did you ask?
They didn't say nothing in their insignia. I didn't recognize it. The rank I recognized and everything was the same, but I didn't recognize anything of where they were, where they was from, stationed, anything, what outfit they was with. So that was kind of weird. And on the next road, we didn't go up to it to stop, but when they had MPs on their sleeves and wearing the white helmets, but where we went down the first road, I almost said the name of the road. They were just soldiers wearing regular Kevlar helmets, and no sidearm on their person, just their M16, which meant that tells me they weren't military police. But the other road, they had MP on their sleeves and was carrying us on.
Well, here's what my feeling is. My feeling is that I don't think those gentlemen knew really why they were there. You're on a need-to-know basis. I believe that what they did is they had a situation in which the commanding officer called them out and said, basically, you are going to guard this entrance, and no one is to get by you. Do you understand? And they don't need to know why they won't have anybody get by them. This is what you do. You will not.
As a soldier, you're trained to react to that.
That's
yes.
Right. So,
but I have a question on that.
Yes.
I agree with you 100%. But what about, isn't there, I hear on other stories that, they have teams that go in and eradicate them.
Yes.
That are our soldiers, part
yes.
of an A-team or something.
Yes.
Okay, they're just securing the perimeter while the other, unit goes in and does its job. Okay,
Yes.
I got you.
Yeah, what you're going to see.
They're not all assigned to the same unit. That's a special unit nobody even knows about, comes in, does their job, and leaves.
Yeah.
The people guard the road don't even see them.
You've got it. I think that now I can't completely prove this. Again, this is just, I'm just a guy that puts things together, right? And how the military operates. The military is very compartmentalized. In other words, if someone feels you don't need to know something, then they're not going to share it with you, and you don't need to ask. You just do. Period. You do what your commanding officer says to do for how long they say to do it. So I believe that's happened many, 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 many times with these cryptid or creature, as well as, let's go a little bit further, as well as any terrestrial type of events. Trust me, that you have officers that are told, you do not leave this post until I tell you. Do you understand? Period. So then you have you have military personnel stationed to secure a perimeter. They don't know why. They just know that don't let anybody go by. Then, since everything is compartmentalized, now you have a very special team comprised of who knows how many people that are, this team is trained just for extraction of these creatures. Now, how they extract them could be, it depends on the circumstance. In this particular circumstance, there was an attack, an aggressive attack on a human being. So they know instantly that this is aggressive. They're going into an area that they have this identified, whatever they call the acronym. I doubt it. In the military and in this division, this unknown secret agency, I'm sure they don't call it a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch. That's too generalized.
Right.
I think they may call it something like an identified land hominoid or something like that. Unidentified land hominoid or creature. They'll give it some interest. Yes. Yeah, exactly. They'll give it something that's an acronym that they all are aware, okay, this is internally, this is a Bigfoot that we have. It's a rogue Bigfoot. We got something going on in this location. So they're going to have an extraction team. They're either going to, whatever they're told to do, dart, shoot, kill, I'm not sure. And then when they extract them, and they're going to have helicopters with thermal imaging, that's what I would do. I would go in and make sure I have all of them rounded up. Then they're going to go in there, and when they don't see any more movement, and they're going to send a team in there, they're going to put them on nets, extricate them out through a helo, and then
I told you what I seen.
Yeah, go into that a little bit.
They had the Schnooks out there, 2 of them. And that's what you're talking about there. That's what they would have hauled them out in.
Yes, because you're talking a large...
The double propeller.
The double propeller that can haul a large cargo load.
Yes, sir.
We're not talking like a news helicopter or anything like that, or a Black Hawk. We're talking something that can have like a large bay, some type of a cargo load.
They can lift a tank up and fly away with it.
Yes.
60-ton chassis, yeah.
Exactly. And I forgot that you did see that. How many did you see?
I seen 2 Schnooks and a couple just plain black helicopters. I told you that one that was like silent. I didn't know we even had stuff like that. That helicopter was flying treetop, and it wasn't flying real fast either. And it went over, and you couldn't even hear it, Lance. Did I tell you about that?
You did, but I'd forgotten about that.
I did too, till just now.
So when you say it was silent, like you couldn't hear the blades cutting through the air.
You couldn't hear nothing. And it wasn't flying very high. It wasn't very, very high off the ground. You should have felt propeller washer, whatever they call it.
Mm-hmm.
It was so low, it seemed like, you couldn't hear nothing. It was amazing.
That's a different technology right there that definitely the public doesn't have access to that.
Did you remember back in the day, it's probably telling your age, but that show Airwolf?
Yes, I do remember that show.
It kind of resembled that, but not quite as rounded, and it was all black.
Did you see there was no identifiable markings, numbers, letters?
Nothing. I didn't see nothing on it.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't really looking. I just got lucky and seen it because I didn't hear it. I mean, it was pretty quick that it happened. But you could see it fly off. There was a big opening on the other side, and you could see it fly over that opening, bank back around, and come back.
When you were seeing,
you didn't hear it, but you seen it.
When you were seeing this, were you on that road where that Humvee was at?
No.
Without giving any specific names, were you back off?
I was in that general vicinity.
You were in the general vicinity. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you saw those Chinooks come in, and then I was telling you, I said, here's what's going to happen. They're going to bring some helicopters in. They're going to extract it, and then what they're going to do when they get
the nail on the head. You said it just like it happened, like you wrote the script.
Well, and that's the thing that you kept questioning me, like, how do you know this? How do you know this? And I said, well, just this is what I would do. This is what I would do. And I've heard enough of these accounts, nothing quite like yours at all, of course, even to this day, but enough of accounts to know what happens immediately after. And this was such a big deal, they had to jump on this immediately to cut the chatter.
That was with the radio station. I think that's why that happened like that. I don't know. Well, it was going to happen anyways, more from what you said. But
when
that happened with the radio station, that's when I really knew they weren't messing around.
Could you tell us? Would you go into that a little bit? What happened there on the radio station?
Yeah, sure. There's a local talk show, and they discuss everything. And they were willing to talk about this, and we went in with the prestige of what they wrote up, said they were going to put in their reports and stuff as a bear attack. And when we got in there and started talking to them before the show went on, and the DJ, almost said his name, was loving it, and it said, go, get right into it, tell it all, don't leave nothing out. And wasn't on the air 30 seconds and the power went out. Everything, backup generators, everything, nothing worked. And they told us to leave immediately. Get out of their station.
The people at the radio station did?
Yeah, they threw us out. Yep, immediately. As soon as that happened, they threw us out. And it wasn't the radio station. They was off for 4 hours. It wasn't them that shut it down. But somebody had said something to somebody or something, because they rushed us out of there right now, and we was not welcome back.
The people at the radio station rushed you out?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. They basically had followed you. They were following you because when you guys came, when you had your cousin and you were in the boat and you got up to the dock area and you called, there was police on site. There was ambulance on site. There was no ambulance. There was not. Okay.
No ambulance. I drove him to the hospital.
Okay. So, what law?
There was one cop. There was a cop, ranger or game. He wasn't a game warden, a ranger or whatever. And a sheriff, a cop, and a game warden. And the cop is the one that really helped me out. I don't want to go into no more details about that.
Okay. Roger that. So there was enough.
That didn't work out. I don't know if I followed up with you on that, but
you did.
Did not work out. Okay.
Yeah. I understand. That was That was a bad deal. But there was enough law enforcement there that I think that's what the catalyst was that got the ball rolling with this agency coming in and cutting the chatter immediately and basically trying to cover up tracks, not literally, but just cover up any kind of local social media chatter, any radio chatter, anything. They were cutting it down, and they were there fast.
They were there quick. And that's, I mean, they started treating us more like the criminal instead of a victim. You know,
that was the puzzling part to you guys, I'm sure, because you were looking for immediate help, like help me understand what just happened. Whereas what happened, you guys got treated like you were a criminal, like you did something wrong, when you did nothing.
Exactly.
You did nothing wrong that afternoon. This occurred about what time?
Just before 5.
Before 5, and
just before 5, like 10 minutes of 5, it is when it all started. Yeah.
And again, this was in October.
October 6th.
October 6th, 2017.
Yep.
Well,
I remember that day very well.
Yeah.
Too well. I wish I didn't. I wish I could forget it all. I really do.
I know. Well, in coming back on and sharing some of the things that's happened to you, it really helps many of us understand a little bit more how real everything is. And regardless of what people think out there when they're hearing this was a real event that happened to two guys minding their own business, and you were fishing. You were
last bass of the year.
Say that again.
Trying to get one of them last bass of the year. It was a nice 70-degree day. It was just nice and sunshine. I mean, it was beautiful. And then all of a sudden, my whole world changed since.
I think, in going back, and we talked about this a couple phone calls back, I think with your cousin and you not understanding, the rocks being thrown and him kind of being a little aggressive in personality, and when you got up to that shoreline and he threw rocks back, not knowing what he was throwing rocks back at or who, I think
it
that
didn't take long to find out.
Yeah, it was an act of aggression on this Bigfoot's part, and then that's kind of when the ball just got out of hand. Everything just changed instantly.
He screamed, man, and just stepped out. Wrapped that arm around that tree, man. That was, Lance, if you could see that, it was so horrifying. That tree was, it was pretty big, round, a couple foot around at least, and he was a good 6 feet away from it, and he wrapped his arm all the way around it. Just reached straight out and grabbed the tree, but it was like all the way around it. It was huge. Yeah, I was like, that just freaked me out, dude. When it popped out like that. And it was standing right by that tree. That's the thing. That tree was not big. When it turned sideways, that thing was a lot thicker than that tree even. There's no way it could make itself behind it, And I just couldn't understand why I didn't see that big thing.
How close?
Amazing, dude.
How close were you when it came out?
First time, like 20 yards. No, about. Man, I've been going over this in my head, dude. It's 60 to 90 feet, man. It wasn't more than 20, 30 yards.
Man.
I'd have put my first pin on it and released it,
Right. Man.
It was just right there. I mean, you could see it plain as day, man. There was no, wow. The thing was so, wow.
Well, it was still daylight. I mean, you saw everything. I mean,
it was just a little before 5, bright and sunny, and was just off of the bank. It wasn't like real dark in the shade or nothing, and the leaves have already started to fall. So it wasn't like all real dark in there. It was some underbrush, but not real thick. Whew, man, yeah, you seen it, man. Its legs were like tree trunks. Wow. And it just, and I just jaw dropped, and I stood there staring at it with a stupid look on my face and pee running down my leg, and couldn't do nothing. And oh, he's a tough guy. He didn't react the same way I did, but I don't know. And then when it just like moved like magic, man. Believe me, in no meaning. I know you understand. I don't mean it, but to people that don't know what I'm saying, I don't think that it's magic or mystical or can disappear or vanish and all that. It's a living, breathing, bleeding creature, and it just moves like you can't even imagine. You wouldn't think something that big could do what it does, and it just boom, man! It was right there. Quicker than you couldn't even put your hand up in front of your face quick enough if you could move. And then just, man, made that freaking hard right turn and freaking gone.
And when it made that hard right turn, it went out.
It was all right. He turned left. He come at us and he took off to his left, all right, and was like just gone. And then a couple seconds later, I looked. I hear him in the water, and he was like in the water, not just like on the shore. It like, I didn't see it at all, but whatever, it pushed him, punched him, did something, and he ended up about 6-8 feet out in the water and couldn't breathe, and that's when it broke his ribs, and I didn't know that. But Lance, that thing moved so fast. We're standing there facing it. It to my right, about a step ahead of me, and it's like just off of my left shoulder, straight ahead at us. And it was, like I said, at 30 yards at the most, 20 yards at the closest, and it was on us in a split second. A split second. I just knew he was dead. And then as fast as it was on us, it turned left and was gone. It was just gone. And it happened so fast that I didn't even see get touched. Nothing. I was, I guess, bracing for the impact, and it never happened. I didn't hear it hit the water or nothing. Did nothing. My whole body shut down, Lance. Just shut down.
Well, we kind of went into a little bit of why your body kind of shutting down.
I want you, if you need to educate people on that in your way, however you're going to do it. That made so much sense to me and made me feel so much better.
Well,
I'm out of breath. You gotta give me, do like you did last time, because when I got excited just a little bit ago, you did a good job. I was going to thank you for the way you got me unexcited real quick. You changed the subject and got in there.
Well, just, we're just
I can't hardly breathe.
That's okay. Just take your time, and I'll talk here a little bit here, and you just kind of rest here a second.
Right.
If you need to go get a drink or whatever, go ahead. What we were talking about a couple phone calls back, this was I think last week, maybe even the week before, and what we were talking about is he was talking about his body just shutting down, and that was the best description, was just shutting down and release of bowel, and just you couldn't move, you're paralyzed. And part of the way our body functions physiologically is that when we're under severe fright or panic or fear, and many people will describe it as a raw fear, an emotion, something that they've never felt before, the body tries to self-preserve. It's almost like someone having a nervous breakdown, and yet it happens systemically through the whole body. It's the way the body tries to preserve without disrupting the organ systems. So the body goes through a protective mode, and so it's kind of like I was explaining it to him like I have an old computer, and it's about 12 years old, and I'm pushing the limits here of what it's capable of doing, and its memory, its RAM, and everything. And so much so that when I'm working on it sometimes, it will just shut down. It doesn't crash, but it just shuts itself down to preserve what I have on the computer, what things that the data and that I have on there. So in self-preservation mode, it just kind of retains itself and will just start to shut down. It'll say, and it'll literally give an icon on here, shutting down power now to preserve data. And that's, even though we're much more complex than a computer, that's still...
Keep it going for another minute.
Yeah, no problem. So that's kind of the same analogy that we were talking about, how the body operates. It goes through a self-preservation mode. So literally, he's standing there with his cousin, and they see this. And again, there's nothing between them. It steps out from that tree, and there's no other trees between them and this Bigfoot. And it's such a moment of bewilderment and fright and fear with this thing screaming that the body instantly goes into this adrenaline dump that happens in the bloodstream. It just, adrenaline, we know, is the fight or flight. Well, everything will tense up. And when they were isolated right here on this shore, and so there really wasn't any place to go. I mean, you're there. And they knew that. And so I was trying to explain that in this fight or flight mode, they were basically, there was no flight. I think they knew that. And as far as the fight, that wasn't there either, because this thing was so large, and they were wearing firearms. And we'll have him just reiterate, to validate that they were. But some people...
I had a .357 Magnum, and he had a .45.
And did you, when you saw this, was that an instinct that you said, "Oh, I have a gun, I'm going to pull it," or you weren't thinking that?
I didn't think that one. I never thought that. Not one time. I even at one point took his gun from him and just held it, really. Never thought about shooting him. I had his gun in my hand when he stepped out the second time and didn't think about it at all. I did the same thing, as a matter of fact, in pros.
Well, and that gets to when people say, well, how come someone didn't get a picture? How come you didn't shoot? And I'll tell you why. The sight, the sheer sight of seeing these creatures, that they, for the first time, that they're real, and especially if they're screaming at you, and the sheer size and the immense power you're looking at is so terrifying that you completely start shutting down. You forget you've got a camera in your phone, you've got a smartphone, you forget you've got a gun. There's been people running from these creatures that's got a rifle strapped over their shoulder, because that's not a normal instinct unless you've practiced it. And most people...
It wouldn't do any good, Lance.
Well, that's the other part to chat about, is that with what you guys had to a human being, that's quite a bit of firepower. But to this creature, it was a pea shooter. It would have just ticked it off more. It would have just ticked it off, and you probably wouldn't be here. I mean, that's...
if I could have placed 6 of them in its eyeball, he could still be on me so fast that it might stop him in 3 minutes, but you aren't going to stop him with... No. And as messed up as you are in the head, you aren't going to place 6 of them in his eyeball.
No, your marksmanship goes...
Center mass and squeeze, but something like that, even in the throat or something. Man, it's so thick. It's unbelievable.
Would
You
you?
hit it on the head. When that thing stepped out, man, that's the thing. When it stood there and wrapped its arm around that tree, it was like I could have walked under its arm, easy. And wow, that's you hit it on the head with the size of it. That's what gets you. It's like the cartoon that people, the older audience will understand. Great gorilla, or that one gorilla cartoon, that purple gorilla.
Oh yeah,
Mowgli
yeah.
and gorilla. Great ape. That was it. Great ape. It compared to Mowgli, I think that was a kid's name, or I don't know. That's the Jungle Book, but that little kid that was with him, that's what it like reminded me of. That's how small I was compared to this thing.
If what in your best guesstimation, and I know we've talked about this, but since we're on the subject, in your best guesstimation, what do you think the weight it fell within?
Wow. It was bigger than an elk. 1,000 pounds, 800. I know that sounds crazy. I know it sounds crazy. That thing was so thick. Its legs were like tree trunks. It's just.
So 800 to 1,000 pounds, and it was at least 8 foot tall or more.
At least 8. Yes. It wasn't 10 foot, but it was close. 8, 8.5, 9. It was 8.
That's big.
At least a piece. It was bigger than a piece of plywood. So it was over 8 foot.
Yeah, a piece of plywood typically comes in sheets 4 by 8, 4 feet wide, 8 foot long.
And it was every bit as wide, if not wider than it was wider than it was bigger than a piece of plywood, man. Wow. Thing was huge.
Now,
That you can't and the color. I've never seen something so black in my life. I've tried to this. I look all the time trying to find it. Not it, but black. That color. I can't find anything that dark. It's like it just absorbed all the light. It didn't bounce off of it. Didn't gleam and glisten. It just absorbed it. And a master camouflage.
So it didn't have like a shiny coat to it. It was just a dull, flat black.
Yeah, I can't remember. It was so black it was blue. And where it was blue, it might have been like a little gleamy, little oily maybe.
Okay.
If you know what I mean by blue.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, when you...
It kind of reminded me of the old men back in the day when they wore Vitalis and slicked back their hair, and they had this coal black hair. And you could see like blue.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember that. So when you guys you said too, and I remember back, we hadn't talked about this point, that you recall seeing out of the corner of your eye another figure up in the trees.
Yeah. I won't say a figure, but I'll say I definitely seen shadow darting.
Moving.
And at the time, I didn't, quickly. I didn't put it together then. My emotions were a little bit different at the time, but it was definitely quick shadows. But it was probably another dark black creature that was moving from tree to tree so freaking fast you can't see it.
Mm-hmm.
Or it just stopped and I didn't see it. I'm telling you, when it come out the second time, man, it started popping its teeth or its jaw. I watched it do it, and you could see right in its mouth and its nose and everything. Man.
Now it was this clicking or whatever it was. I mean, it was showing its teeth. Obviously, to you guys, it was upset. Obviously,
I thought it was like biting down with its jaw, like clicking it, like biting its teeth together.
Gotcha.
But it was a real loud popping noise like that, like teeth gnawing. But I think it was like taking its tongue and doing it. I don't know, but its nose, man, it was like bright pink. I know that sounds silly, but it reminded me of that bubble gum, bazooka bubble gum or hubble bubble, whatever it was, that pink
Right.
stuff. It was like that, maybe a little darker, but that's for some reason that popped in my head.
Well, I found that part interesting too because in the great apes, that when they're under a lot of stress or when they are very angry, the the tissue inside the nose and around the lips will get engorged with blood, and it will show just a brilliant pink or red. And so that has actually been described on other encounters with people around the lips and in the nose as well. So I find that very interesting when you mention that. In fast forwarding, I know we're jumping around here just a little bit. I'm just kind of, I'm how after all this has transpired, and have you had anybody that you're aware of where you guys followed? I mean, where did you see vehicles,
Yeah.
ever unusual vehicles following you guys, or at least you?
Yes, sir. Several times.
When was the last time that you can recall that you feel or you just know that
I
you were followed?
I watch all the time now, all the time, and it's been a long time.
Okay.
I can't. It's been months that I know of. They're probably listening to me right now.
Well,
And the phones, our phones, not just mine, but my wife's also
right.
got to. I don't think I told you about that.
No.
You couldn't use them. You couldn't. I took them to the store, and nobody could. They told me it was no good. Throw it away. Got to buy another one.
What?
Yep. They just locked up. We used to plug our phones in at the same. We had a little charging station. We'd plug them both in. I didn't even have a regular cell phone all the time. She did, and my daughter. I had a little flip phone. I didn't even carry it half the time. But after I talked to you, I got one of them phones like I got now where I can get on the internet and everything, and started putting my phone with theirs, charging them up every night, and got up the next one morning after all this and went to look at my phone, and I it come on, but it was in like a foreign language, and I couldn't get into settings. I couldn't get into nothing, and then same thing happened to my wife's. And they couldn't explain it, period. What happened at the phone store, nobody. I took it to 50 different places. Nobody could tell me what happened.
Our phones, I want to tell you, and you know this, but our phones are not private anymore.
Right. One phone, my phone or my wife's or my daughter's, I would think, well, something happened. But both of our phones, within minutes of each other.
Yeah.
Come on. That's more than a coincidence.
Right. Right. Well, phones nowadays, I mean, these phones are tracked with GPS. We know that. And the FCC, the government can hack in, or not even, they can actually get access very quickly to phone records, and they can shut any phone down. They can listen to any phone. When your phone is actually off, they can still hear, and when your phone is off, they can actually still see through the lens of your camera. There's a lot of experts that says, oh yeah, they can still do that. I'm not an expert on that, but I'm just saying what makes sense, just a guy that puts things together. The thing with this agency is...
Well, you remember that was happening with us.
Yes.
That happened with you in a different call, didn't it?
It did.
Something like that.
It happened with me and a gentleman out of Florida. He was with a friend because a friend asked him, hey, I've got some weird stuff happening at a state park. He's responsible for the garbage in the park, and he thought there was a homeless person stealing the garbage, but it just was so fast, and this was happening toward the day. And this park in Florida, it's so thick. It's almost it's so thick with foliage around the park that it's almost like this park was just, you cut away all this foliage and you stick picnic tables in there, and so there's a lot of like cul-de-sac type of areas in this park. Well, this one particular area, this gentleman said, I'm having something is searching through the garbage. So he contacted his friend, and they parked near this garbage bin. And while they were there was a family having like a party with some kids, and they were playing. And out of the corner of his eye, near the tree line, he sees this creature standing and coming a little bit out of the tree line, then going back and coming in like it's anxious. And it's looking at this family he's noticing. And he takes a picture or two of this creature. It's clear as day. He had it on his phone. And not shortly after that, two cars pull up and said, we need to talk to you. And the first car was a man, the second car was a woman. In the meantime, as this car, prior to this, he had a dog in the back, and the dog was on its side, foaming at the mouth. It was fine just seconds prior to that. As the second car passed, the dog got up like nothing was wrong, but there was something emitting, something was going on with those cars for that dog to behave that way. He followed these cars up to the entrance of the park. They got out, and this gentleman said, what's going on? And he said, I need your ID and I need your phone. Well, this guy wasn't realizing that these people were with this secret agency. He thought that it was like the FBI was doing some type of surveillance on this family, and this father of this family was like a mob boss or something. It's not clicking to him. It's not clicking at all that what he saw, that was what they were interested in. So they gave him back his ID, and they wrote some things down, and then they had their back to him as they're talking. In the meantime, they took out his SIM card to the phone, and they attached something to the battery of his phone. And they put it back on very fast, gave it back to him. His phone wasn't working. He said, what'd you do? And they said, we didn't do anything. He said, it's not working. It was working when I just handed it to you. And the guy said, you must have dropped it if it's not working. And it says no SIM card inside. He said, like I said, you must have dropped it and it fell out somewhere. No sooner had he had his laptop with him in the car. His friend was still in there. The very next day, his friend loses his job at the park. He had been there 15 years or something of that nature.
Imagine that.
He goes that evening, and he does work for the city. All of this city work and paperwork that he has on his computer was gone. He said, Lance, I didn't give him anything. How did they do that? I said, it's technology. They can do anything they want. They can go in. They can hack anything. Nothing is private. So he said, I'm going to find them. I'm going to talk to them.
Not a good idea.
Well, guess what? He was telling me, and I said, well, maybe I said, they got what they wanted. You took those pictures. Right. They didn't come out and they weren't clear, and they won't be clear. But they have it on your SIM card now, and they have what they want. He said, well, I have pictures of my grandkids and events, and I don't care. Let them just take what you want and give me back my photos. And I said, well, I wouldn't recommend it, but he did it. He went back to the park, found the car, and they got out. The guy got out of the car. And when the guy got out of the car, he repeated some of our conversation that this witness and I had on a private
Wow.
conversation.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. He said he knew who I was and that they were watching me and that they definitely knew who he was, and they repeated the conversation about him going to talk to them. And
Wow.
he told this eyewitness, he said, a little bit of BS goes a long way. Just remember that. A little bit of BS goes a long way. You need to leave. And that's what he told him. So they're listening all the time, anytime. I just assume that when you think they
They're
are,
listening now.
it's very possible. It's very possible. What they typically don't like is chasing after the truth. Chasing after the truth. Now, so what is the truth? The truth can look many different ways. It can be in the form of paperwork. It can be in the form of taking pictures of their car, of helicopters, of events that's happening. They don't like that. Again, how do I know this? I can't say absolutely, but if I put myself in their shoes, I wouldn't like it. So they don't like the truth because this group is again, I mentioned this earlier. It's an unacknowledged kind of secret access program is what this follows under. And it's a collection of different agencies. We don't know how many. But I did a little bit of interesting research to find it's estimated that in this unacknowledged, now I say unacknowledged because our U.S. government does not acknowledge this agency exists. So again, the U.S.A.P is that it's estimated that 100 to 200 billion with a B dollars of government defense money is not accounted for, and that's probably a conservative estimate. Somewhere that much money, if not more, is missing that was never accounted
Wow.
for, and that was back in the Bush days. So another way to look at that is that there's $100 million a day that's unaccounted for. It's not budgeted, and there is no public scrutiny, and who knows where it goes. It goes to
Wow.
programs like this to keep things alive. They have unlimited budgets, unlimited access to any technology they deem necessary to conduct surveillance on us when we encounter these various creatures, as well as we can't forget our terrestrial type of friends.
Yeah.
So this is what falls underneath it falls underneath, and so they can conduct many different types of surveillance that you would be deemed illegal. So it's an illegal secrecy, and they don't have to follow warrants. They don't have to follow any type of wiretap procedures, legal wiretap procedures. They're never going to go into a court of law and any depositions. They are immune to anything like that. So they are really kind of, if you will, run amok. They can do just about whatever they see fit. In other words, they can destroy a person's life. And here
They got a 00 number.
Pardon me?
They have a 00 number.
Yes. Yep. And so I say it again, we've talked about it many times, but this is why I tell people, we can learn from these episodes when you have an encounter. Now, this particular encounter had some trauma, so your cousin did need some help. But it's a fine line. What I'm going to say is that if you become injured, but you're still alive, he had some ribs busted, and it can puncture a lung, you can puncture organs, vital organs, and you're in a lot of pain. painkillers. I mean, you need to get checked out. Medically, you need to get checked out. But the problem with this is that when you go to the hospital, they're going to say, "How did this happen?" And
Yeah.
if you ever say this was a creature encounter, they're going to call the law. And the law comes over, they're probably going to call the game warden because it happened out in the woods or on the lake. That's where their area or domain is at. So you start saying anything like that, I can promise you that's the catalyst to get the ball rolling. And there will be people visit you. I'm going to say guaranteed there'll be people visit you. Or there'll be people follow you.
Is that because those professionals working there at those facilities are trained to do that?
Well, the game wardens
or
are trained.
They think you're nuts.
Yeah, the game wardens. Well, you're saying at the hospital. So what they're going to do is the hospital will say this falls underneath some domestic issue. So they'll probably call, that's what they're trained. Hospitals have to, by law, notify law enforcement if there is dog bites and or domestic issues, especially if there's child abuse issues, or they suspect some domestic issue going on at the house, or someone may have caused something of harm upon you. And so if they get a feeling about that, they'll contact the law. Then they say, well, what really happened? Well, we're in the woods. So you start saying any outdoor involvement, then they'll probably call the game ranger. Then the game ranger, what they're going to do, they have been trained, they're going to contact this federal agency, whether it be by a phone number and communicating a particular type of code, or just calling the phone number, and that's going to get the ball rolling. Now, you'll never see a public report by this game warden. You'll never see that. And if you do, it will be a bear attack, or it'll be a feral dog attack, or a wild hog attack. It'll never be the truth. And that's what they're trained to do, because they have been told by their superior officers, if they want to retire and have a long employment with the wildlife department, you better be quiet on this particular subject. So that's kind of how things get rolling. And from there, it just goes on and on and on. You've got people that are assigned caseloads, I'm sure, and your particular case, they're trained in this organization to lie, deny, and deceive. Lie, deny, and deceive. And who are they deceiving? The public. John Q. Citizen, you and me. So it's the truth doesn't matter. It's the perception of truth. See, you only have to say it a little bit, and then people begin to believe it. And what I found, there's a lot of parts I found just amazingly terrifying, and it mainly revolves around, I know the Bigfoot was terrifying, but this agency and all what they can do is that with your cousin, he was arrested, and he got his own attorney, and minutes prior to, you guys were at the courthouse, minutes prior to his attorney, what happened? Would you mind sharing kind of what happened from there?
Yeah. He quit. Plain and simple.
The attorney called him and said, I can't take your case. And your cousin was saying, well...
He came up to... He never met him before. And he just walked right up to him.
Now, let's back up a little bit here.
They never met.
Let's back up a little bit. He had an attorney that he acquired, and the attorney called him. He was waiting on the attorney to show up at the courthouse because he had a hearing before the judge, and minutes before he was going to have, you were at the courthouse waiting, and Wells with other people out there having their court date, and the attorney
Yep.
calls and said, "I can't take your case," and then kind of
Yep.
hangs up. Then, minutes after that, a guy who your cousin and you had never seen before came right up to your cousin, walked, didn't ask any people. He just walked right up to him and said, "I've been assigned your case. I'm your new attorney," or something like that.
Yeah, and took him to just grabbed him by the arm, escorted him back
Back where?
into a room, and then said that there wasn't that just go home, that it's being taken care of. He'll be contacted.
So
This was at the federal courthouse.
So he says he was an attorney. When you told me that, I knew at that point in time he wasn't an attorney.
See, and we were so dumb and confused. We didn't put all that together until I talked to you, and then it made perfect sense.
Yeah.
I don't know how I wasn't seeing everything.
Well, you believe still, both of you, that you were just trying to prove your innocence. You were the ones wrong. You didn't ask for any of this to happen. That's the part where you're still giving people the benefit of the doubt. We need some help here. At least we can get help here that he was wrongly accused of whatever. Did they ever say at all why he was arrested?
No. No.
See?
I'm laughing about it now because it's so funny that they can do that and get away with it.
Yeah, because they
It's scary. You're right. This is more scary than that Bigfoot, because they can get you everywhere.
exactly. That's the part that people just really don't know.
Did we go on air with anything about that with the court? Does anybody know what we're talking about?
I think we did, but let's basically we'll back up here. I'll have people go back and listen. If it's not on the episode 24, which I think it is, it's been a while since I've listened. But basically, after everything transpired, your cousin was arrested, and he was not dropping the subject. You and I were talking, but I still have yet to talk to your cousin. He was just if you will, he was just kind of hell bent on getting someone's going to listen. I'm going to crack this. I'm in the right. This is all wrong. And he had every right to feel that way and think that way. Absolutely. You both did. But he wasn't dropping it. And so they had to use a bit more pressure tactics on him. And then that's when he was arrested, I believe, at that point in time.
Yep.
And to get the point across. Now, when they do things like this, no one's ever going to step up and say, it was us. Well, who is us? No one's going to give a name. They're not going to give a badge. They're not going to say. You're just going to connect the dots that it's this group.
You don't even know why you're going to jail.
You don't even know why you're going to jail, and you don't connect the dots till later. So this guy that came up to him, again, he calls this attorney. This attorney calls him back while he's at the courthouse and said, I can't take your case. Why not? I just can't take your case. Click. The phone hangs. Then this guy out of the blue walks down the hall, doesn't talk to anybody else, but walks right up to your cousin and said, we need to talk.
And never met us before, but he knows who he is and has been assigned his case.
There you go. And who that guy was not an attorney. He was with this agency. He was with the agency. He knew who he was because he was investigating the case. He's very familiar. He was part of the group. So from that point, you guys got in the truck, and you really didn't say anything. He didn't want to talk. Your cousin didn't want to talk.
No.
It was just dropped. So we both thought, or I thought at that point in time, that he had been somewhat threatened with something personal, and that he finally got it to be quiet. He knew that there was a bigger power behind the scenes trying to get him to basically catch on and be quiet.
That's exactly when it sunk in.
Yeah. They may not have come
I
out.
I don't know what that guy told him.
And
You know, he had a minute or two with him. You know, but
well,
that was it. It wasn't long or nothing. He never went to court. He never went in front of a judge. Nothing. He just walked right. We walked right out the courthouse. I'm like, what? No, you no. You go to court. You got to go back in there. Yeah.
yeah, who knows what they said?
Dumbfounding.
They could have said anything, and under the circumstance, they may have had something personal on him, or something they were going to take away.
Well,
And
me and you talked about that, didn't we?
yeah, we did.
Okay.
We did, and I think that's what they used. I won't mention it, but I think they used some personal leverage on him, and that's what got him to say, "Okay, uncle, I'm done." Um,
And they'll go as far as to threaten your children.
yes,
I'm just going to say that, and that's all I'm saying.
yes,
And it's not a game, and it's not just saying that. That's the truth.
yeah,
So everything he's been saying tonight, for you people out there that aren't quite getting it, it's for real. It's really, really for real. This is not make believe. This is everything. We're leaving a lot of stuff out. It's for real. My advice to you is to talk to Lance before you do anything. If you ever have an encounter, or before you talk about it, talk to Lance, and don't put yourself in this mess. Nothing's good's going to come out of it. You're not going to get your way. They got too many players, and you don't have enough. There's no way you can do anything about it.
no, that's
And it goes extremely far. I don't know how far they take it, but it goes extremely far. They'll wear you out way before you can do anything about it. And like he said, you don't even know. Things will just happen to you, and you won't even know what's going on. And life-changing things. But just be very careful when it comes to that.
it is a life altering.
It
is the truth. It is the truth, and it's even though it didn't happen to me directly, it happened to me indirectly because I've had computers messed with.
You walked me through every step of it. You did, and if I would have listened to you from the get-go, I would have been so much better off. But I pushed it too. That's the truth.
Well,
you told me from the very get-go, shut up. Take my advice and just shut up.
Well,
that's exactly what you told me, and you told me to tell him the same thing.
Yeah, because people, it makes you mad, it makes you angry that our government would behave this way, and I understand you have every right to be that way and feel that way and act that way. But the problem is you're dealing with a part of the government that doesn't really care if it destroys your life. All they care about is keeping things secret. And so when it comes to the decision of keeping something secret or trying to tell the world what happened, you don't have enough finances, time, patience, and to beat these people. And I'm not saying it so in other words, it's best just left alone in many ways. The best thing
Take that advice, people. Adhere to that. That's a fact. Didn't start off. We didn't start off to go out and do this with them. We was upset because it was a monster. Just now, it's a Bigfoot to me. Only from listening to the shows and hearing everybody call it that. It was a monster, and that's how we've described it to to everybody. That's why they told us to shut up. But we was mad because it was going to kill somebody, and they weren't going to do nothing about it. They weren't going to warn people. If a bear attacked my cousin, they would put up signs. They would put up bear traps. They would let the public know, and they wasn't going to let anybody know about this. And that's what made us the most mad.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
That's why we pursued it. And then other things happened with my cousin, and he's a little more bullheaded, and he wasn't taking no for an answer. He was going to put the word out, and it didn't work out. The word did not get out, and it did not work out. So no sense in trying.
Yeah,
listen to everything Lance says. It's good advice. Lance has been my true friend for a couple years. We've talked sometimes every day. We'd go sometimes when all this was happening, we decided that we wasn't going to speak for a while, and that was a good choice because it was affecting you also. That was very good advice, and a lot of time went by, a lot of stuff happened, and you've stuck with me through it all, and I owe you. I am so grateful to you. I told you personally, but I want everybody to know how much you've helped me, and that I think you could help everybody that's had an encounter out here. Not only is he passionate enough to do that, but he's even done a lot more studying and learning more about this and how to take care of PSTD and treat PSTD. He's putting some effort into this to help people, and it's great. There's not enough words that I could say to tell you how good it is, and that's coming from the heart, and that's true. Listen to what he has to say. He's a very wise man, and he's done his homework on this, and he'll help you. He surely has helped me, and I'm very grateful, and I love you, brother. I mean that. If it wasn't for you, I told you from day one, I don't know what would happen. You've helped me more than you ever will know, and that's a fact.
You're so welcome, and love you too, man. I tell you, you've been through a lot, more than what a person should go through, even your cousin, and maybe someday we'll get to chat with him. You know, I'm still kind of crossing my fingers on that, but
man, I thought we was close. I thought it was going to happen.
Well, time. The biggest thing with this, when you have an event like this, that's this traumatic, and it takes time, but time doesn't allow to forget. What we have to do is learn how to place everything and cope. And so what you and I will be doing is doing more talking and doing some exercises to kind of help you cope more and more and more. And it's not easy for anybody that has a severe trauma like this, but especially this creature trauma. It's a different PTSD, and I'll tell you why. The brain still doesn't discriminate between the PTSD of wartime and the PTSD of this creature encounter. But what makes it different is the fact that in wartime, you can seek help, and everybody talks about it. It was a human being doing bad things to another human being. Whereas in this case, it's hard to tell someone that this was a creature that did something to a human being, and there's people trying to cover this up. So already from the get-go, you're looked at as a nut. What have you been smoking? what kind of drugs were you taking? Did you lose it out there? And so now, not only do you need some help, but now you're told you're a liar. And things now around you are crumbling. It's one of those things. And so it's very, very, very frustrating. And I believe, this happening to you was not right. It was extremely wrong. But I'm going to say that there are hundreds, maybe even thousands, but hundreds, safe to say, of people that have had very similar things happen to them by this group, that have done very similar things to their bank accounts and have been talked to be quiet, and those people never got to talk to anyone about anything to this day. And they're out there. They're just quiet. They're fearful of who might be listening even years later. And I don't blame them. I really don't. If you're out there listening and you're still fearful, I understand. But at some point in time, it will definitely heal the soul to talk to someone about this that understands.
Amen, brother.
And, I don't claim to be any expert by no means or any stretch of the imagination. I always say we're just a bunch of guys that puts things together that makes sense. What makes sense? Well, if I was them, what would I do next? What would I do next? That's all I'm ever asking is the next what would I do next if this happened? This is what I would do. And then that's what they're doing. I don't like their tactics. It's wrong. They don't care if they destroy someone's life. All they care about is doing their job. Their job is to contain the truth. Contain the truth. So they intentionally lie about it, they deny it, and they deceive. Who are they deceiving? Us, the public, John Q. Citizen. Once they've done that, they wipe their hands, and I'm done. And then they just make sure that if they can destroy your life, you'll get the picture. You'll shut up. And end of story. I mean, that's it in the nutshell. And so I know it's late. We could just keep talking.
That's all right. I enjoy speaking to you, brother.
I enjoy speaking.
Let me throw this out there, please.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to tell everybody thank you that was concerned and wondering how we're doing. Getting my sense of humor back. I am getting better every day. I really am. But I'm still screwed up. It changed my world. It changed my life. It's going to be different. I'm getting back to normal. And, like with my attitude and spirituality and closer to God than ever. And I want everybody to remember that, too, that I rebuked it in the name of Jesus Christ, and it left. There's power in them words. It's living word. If you ever get yourself in a situation, turn to God. Turn to Him quick. I really believe that. But it's thank you for caring and wondering how we're doing. We're still living, and we're still kicking, but we're not talking too much about it. That's about it. We're dealing with it every day, and if it wasn't for you, Lance, I wouldn't be able to deal with it because you're still the only person that I can talk to about it, and that means a lot. So I appreciate it.
Oh, you're so welcome. You're so welcome.
Worries about me.
Well,
and I thank you for worrying.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of people, and I'm telling you, there were so many people I couldn't return all the messages back. So I do apologize for that. But people were asking.
I would never guessed in a million years anybody would ever be concerned about me. Honestly, not thinking, oh, poor me or nothing. I'm just that touches me that people were concerned.
Yes.
And I just wish my cousin would come around a little bit and talk. I don't know. I told you we hung out the other day for the first time.
Yes.
And we did a little talking, but not about that. He really didn't say too much. I think he told me basically all he really said was he's never been so scared in his life that he has trouble sleeping. He said he doesn't sleep, and that sucks because I'm not able to sleep all the time either, but I'm getting a lot better with it, and God really helps with that. And you help with that. Every time I talk to you, I feel much better.
Well,
But
we just need to talk more often.
I think that God to him. I think he's still not wanting to even talk to me about it. I think he got the message to shut up, and he shut up to everything.
Mm. Well, and
you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I don't blame him at all. I do not. It was terrifying so much on every level from his standpoint and from your standpoint. You know, everybody's going to process the same event different, and who knows what they said to him. So if he never talks to anybody, I would still never blame him, but that if he does, and it may be just a matter of time, you know, I'm open ears, and if he doesn't want to come on, that's fine too. We can just talk in private. Just talk.
I thought he was gonna. I told you.
Yeah.
When me and you talked earlier that me and him, talked about that.
Right.
Doing a follow up, and when I told him about the people, and he even asked me, he's like, "Well, what if I get on there and don't know what to say?" I'm like, "What do you mean you don't know what to say? Just tell him what he asks. Do what he asks."
Yeah. Well, he's just concerned like anything, like anybody would be. I don't know where to begin, and there's so much to talk about that you just kind of get overwhelmed. But we don't have to record or anything like that. If we can just start out just kind of chatting. That's all. So if he ever,
he that's weird you said that, because he told me he listened to the show. I never listened to the show, but he did. And he asked me, he's like, "Man, how do you remember all that?" And I'm like, "You don't?" He's like, not as much as you do." And I'm thinking he was pretty traumatized and stuff too,
Sure
he got knocked out for a minute, but not for long. But he got messed up because he said I remembered a lot more than he did.
Well, I'm sure that there may be some suppression there of unintentional suppression. Not intentional, but the brain has an interesting way it treats each trauma, each event, especially one as horrific as what you guys went through. I'm just thinking about it here real quick. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but your cousin, while I'm thinking of it, he went to the hospital to collect some records. He was going to pay a bill, I believe, and
he went to try to get the bill, and he asked who. Yeah, he went to get records, and they couldn't find them. They had no. They didn't have them, and he asked, "Well, who do I pay the bill to, and what for?" He's like, "Let me have the bill then," and they couldn't produce a bill or anything.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
that's
very funny.
Well, and what's really interesting is that medical records, anyone can receive their own medical records. I don't care if it's from a hospital, a dentist, a medical doctor, a chiropractor,
Right.
a podiatrist, a physical therapist. It doesn't matter. Those are legal documents that you have access to. And to go to a hospital that he went to for care and they can't produce any records. So what that tells me is that everything has been erased.
And that's not BS, people. That's the truth. That is the truth. I was there.
Well, and, there were some people I recall that said, well, that's what we need to prove this. We need medical records. Well, people here, I agree on that subject. Yeah, I agree that that's what would be a great piece of evidence.
Yeah.
But I'm here to tell you that when you have a group that has been trained extremely well in all aspects of a case, and they know that where you went at what time, and if there's any paper trail anywhere, they will retrieve it.
We was interviewed at the hospital.
See? And I mean, you were there, and yet they don't have a record of it. There's no bill. So someone obviously did not want any paper. There's a paper record. There is a trail. It's just we don't know where that paperwork's at. There's a record of it. It's just that it's not public access. It's not accessible by your cousin, even though it was his and he has a legal right to it. You remember what I said earlier? They don't want anyone looking for paper trails. They don't like that. They don't like.
When you said they sent in the cleanup crew, they really sent in the cleanup crew.
Yes.
They clean it up. Everything.
Everything. No trace. They erase anything happened. So on this particular area that this Bigfoot was at, and it sounds like other Bigfoot hominoids were there. There is no evidence of any scat, any tree structures. You can bet all prints, anything that remotely gave evidence that these creatures were there is gone in a matter of hours. And anything that revolved around anything with this occurrence, this event, was gone. Now, here's what's interesting. Did I...
People, this all happened within a matter of a week. It was done. Within a matter of a week, it was done.
Yeah. It didn't take long.
No.
Did I share with you the phone call that I received? And I did play it for people. I received a phone call from a person that called themselves Mr. X. Did I ever?
No, you didn't play that phone call, but you told me that somebody, I forget about it now.
Yeah,
so somebody called and said they were there.
Yes. He said that he basically, the voice was kind of distorted, so I don't know if it was I think it was a intentional distortion. But basically, it said, "This is Mr. X. The story that you ran was legitimate. I was a witness to it.
There was a boat there.
There was a boat there, but that this person was talked to."
He said that?
I believe that's what he implied. I don't think this person came out and said that, but how they said it, it implied to me that they were talked to, which was why they distorted their voice in this message left to me. But that they saw this from the bank. They were there, or they saw it from wherever their vantage point was. I shouldn't say from the bank, but from their vantage point. I assumed it was from the bank at first, and then when you said there was another boat there, that could have been this person or persons.
Yeah, because they went around I remember that, me and you talked about that. They went around the other side of the island. They had to have heard that scream, man.
I'm sure they did.
Sound travels on the water. Everybody within a couple miles heard that scream, I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't hear it.
Well, I remember that person saying that the story was legitimate, the veracity of it was legitimate, but that there's other people that kind of how they said it was basically don't dig too deep, more or less. So they were there. It just confirms to me that was very interesting recording when I got that. So basically, they were kind of warning me that, as well as informing me, but warning me that, and I knew they were just, and I played it for people, but that was something I thought was very interesting, which also fits into you seeing this other boat there. Now, was this person on that boat? We don't know. Was this
Yeah, there
person?
was a couple people. There was a couple people.
Yeah, was there people on the bank?
I can't remember now. I know there was a couple people on the boat. One bald-headed guy, I think, that I remember. We talked to him, said, "Hey," not like right, when it happened or after it happened, but prior to that day out there fishing.
I really appreciate you, the kind words that you said, and I appreciate you very much. And I always I'm grateful for you. I'm honored that you would share with me and share with everybody this follow up. I know they've been wanting it for a long time.
God brought us together.
Yeah,
I know He did. That was the reason behind all this. But I mean, I don't know what the end plan is, but He brought us together. That's for sure.
Yeah, He did. He did. And so, we'll stay in contact as we always have, more often though this time. And I just I'm thankful for the people out there, the subscribers that wanted to know more and find out what's been going on and just understand more about this, because this event is one that ranks as one of the most unusual, terrifying Bigfoot encounters in decades that has been reported. Now, there may be some that has not been reported, but this is...
Yeah, because they can.
That's right.
They can't report it where they're at.
That's right. This goes for the records right here. This is one that people can learn from. We can educate ourselves what's going on. So I just wanted people to be educated on what not to do, and to just kind of heed warning about some of the things that happened to you and your cousin. So no one's trying to convince anyone. That's one thing I try to tell people. We're not trying to ultimately convince you, but please allow a little bit of this to soak in. Because if there's a circumstance, heaven forbid, but if there's a circumstance that something comes up where you have an encounter, you will
humble yourself and back away.
Yeah.
Do not show aggressive. It's not like a bear. Don't make yourself look bigger. Be very humble.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have a problem doing that as big as it is, but just be humble and back away and say a prayer and speak Jesus' name. There's power in it, I'll tell you. Read the Bible. It'll tell you. You have dominion.
And you need to know, also, in addition to that, you need to know that allow some of what we talked about to kind of soak in a little bit. And if you have any questions, you can give a call anytime. I've got a toll-free number. It is 1-866-306-8085. Again, that's 24/7 toll-free. And allow me, a day or two to get the message, and I'll acknowledge that I received it. And then we'll schedule a time and we can talk, and we can kind of help you get through some things, and I can educate you on a little bit of what's going on if you tell me the context or the circumstance, what's going on. So, buddy, I'll let you get some rest. We'll talk again here this coming week. I want you to have a great 4th of July. And,
hey, you also, buddy.
And be safe. And we'll talk here soon again, very soon, probably next week or sooner. So I want to thank you again for coming on and sharing this personal event that's changed your life. And, one day at a time, I'm in this with you, and we'll stick together, and we'll make sure that you get the help that you need, and one day at a time, one day at a time.
You've done a great job so far, and I'll tell you what, you made me really comfortable. I didn't even realize that we was talking to people. It was just me and you talking. It made it easy. I felt a lot more comfortable.
Good.
Yeah, it's and people. He's being humble. He'll help you. He really will help you, and he's a man of your word. If he tells you he's going to do something, he does it. He's a good, honest Christian man, and you're in good hands with him. He won't. He's not a deceiver. He's trying to help people. He's not in it for anything but to help. I truly believe that, and it's a godsend. You're a godsend for sure, and I just know you're going to bless people. People needs help, and you're the man for it. If you need help with this, he'll help you. He's a good friend. He'll treat you right, do you right, and he will help you. And he just won't talk to you one time and never hear from him again.
No,
if you need help there, he calls. Sometimes we talk 2-3 times a day there.
Oh yeah.
For a long time.
For a long time.
A long time.
Long time.
I mean, man, and if it wasn't for that, it trust me, people. If you need help, call him. If you experience anything like that, just give him a call. He's a good man. And I appreciate you, Lance. You never have to thank me, buddy. Never. That's true. That's coming from the heart. That's, thank me for that. It's one of those things. I'm going to get some rest. You have a great weekend and great 4th of July weekend.
You do the same. And blessings to you. And you have an awesome night, buddy. And we'll talk very, very soon. And you take care.
You too.
All right.
Can't wait to hear from you. Have a good night.
You too, buddy. Good night.